I have another pedagogy question for you. Could you just speak, and then Heidi's mentioned it before, just the additional challenge of like group work this year with kids coming back from the pandemic and things of that sort. And I'm just curious what things you were doing as a professor to help foster and build that, as a teacher who's trying to move away from like what kids perceive as like standard math class to more work together and kind of work through these things, and just curious what stuff that you're doing specifically.
That's a great question. For me, I think the first part of that, and it's one part that I oftentimes emphasize, especially in Biology 101, especially when where I'm trying to teach students the skills that that they need to, that I believe that they need in order to be successful in college. One of my key points is transparency, to explain to them why we are doing this, right? Why am I emphasizing group work? Why am I emphasizing that you have to go to office hours? Why am I emphasizing that you need to study before you come into your group, before you talk through, before you study together in your group, so forth and so on. So I think that transparency is very important, because ultimately that allows them to go through the process of metacognition as well. In Bio 101, one of the strategies that I've used is to make it fun. One of the things we used to do, that we still do, is for early in the semester, we'll have what we call a Wi-Fi competition, where they actually have to take pictures with their study group, in their study group, or studying together, and post them for everybody else to share, and there'll be a grand prize for the winner, right? That type of activity, or that type of thing, really does break up the idea that it all needs to be so serious. And there is the question of extrinsic versus intrinsic motivators, but at the very least, most of the students seem to enjoy it, especially if they come out with silly poses in their study groups. So that will be one simple way. But in terms of this semester, in terms of studying together, providing the space is important. I think providing the space in class is very important, and absent the traditionally, when groups study together, they often have snacks and everything else. The other question is, what can you provide in order for the group to want to come together physically, and despite the fact that they have to wear masks in front of each other and everything else like that. Music is a great part of that, helping essentially introducing the idea that they should have music while they are studying together, and in essence having a mission, right? One thing that Heidi really likes is that she has every week she has a quiz, and in that quiz, one of the last questions is, who did you do this quiz with? Because it is encouraged for you to do this quiz in the group. So it's a reminder as well as a check-in, and certainly it can be a tool to be used to see who they were actually studying with. But I think the main thing that I would say is that if you want groups to, for groups to work together, if you want groups to work together, it's important to provide the space in the classroom for that group work to start to occur. Because ultimately, then they don't feel as if that there's one less barrier to it. Did that help at all? I'm sorry.
I think one of the things, MC, that you didn't say that I know you've really put in place that's become so important is we've built a lot of time into our lab settings for writing, but not just, and communication, but not just like the teaching of it like in formal ways, but through really structured peer reviews and kind of opportunities for them to share orally. And I'm not the one in the labs for the course. MC kind of leads that part of this large course. But I've been struck in recent weeks, MC, by how stunningly good and invested they've become in those very structured settings. Like they're still struggling when we leave them on their own. But I think you've brought structure to those processes, again, creating space and valuing it in the classroom. That's been really helpful to them to get the skills to do this work and not just assume they have the skills.
Well, we brought structure to that. One of the things that we did in order to do that was really to decrease the amount of content and the amount of stuff they do in the labs, which meant giving up on some of that in order to build some of the skills. But that was a compromise that I think that has proven to be actually useful.